The menace to the southeast is now Tropical Storm Ian and is expected to become a hurricane in the next 48 hours. In response, NASA has canceled plans to attempt an Artemis launch on Tuesday the 27th and began full-scale preparations for a rollback to the VAB. The decision on whether a rollback will be ordered has been postponed until Sunday, but the early preparations mean that first motion could come on late Sunday night or early Monday morning. Weather modeling has been trending westward in the last day, and the track has been adjusted accordingly by the National Hurricane Center. The current cone now places the path significantly west of KSC, with the Cape just inside the right edge. The European model this afternoon joined the GFS and others in placing the storm off the west coast of Florida. One of the hurricane models actually places the growing storm in the central Gulf. Early this evening, the German Icon model made a surprising shift back to the east, impacting Florida. Models will be ingesting significant new data overnight as the center of low pressure in Ian becomes more apparent. Thus, NASA managers will have a better idea about the storm's path when they meet on Sunday. Should the Hurricane Center forecast remain offshore of the Florida Peninsula, conditions in KSC at the height of the storm would remain acceptable for staying on the pad. But if the models move sharply east again, as suggested by the Icon run, Central Florida could be back in the danger zone. The final launch opportunity day cited by managers was for Sunday, October 2nd. Some have wondered if the Wednesday, September 28th window is available, but it seems unlikely given the rollback preparations over the weekend. Also mitigating against the 28th is the short duration of the window, only 34 minutes. The October 2nd window opens at 2:52 p.m. and lasts for 109 minutes. NASA had earlier prioritized October 3rd for the SpaceX Crew 5 mission. The window on that day for Artemis opens at 4:15 p.m., lasting for 59 minutes. The final day of this launch period 26 is Tuesday, October 4th, but the window is only for 2 minutes. Launch period 27 opens with 6 night opportunities beginning on Monday the 17th. The first really good window, with daytime conditions, long window, and long mission duration, comes on Thursday the 27th at 10:08 a.m. The International Space Station flew over Ian this afternoon and captured some great views of the storm. Here are recordings of the downlinked video captured by the nice folks at ISS above you. You can find a link to their work in the description. Follow WSN on Twitter for updates on this evolving story. United Launch Alliance successfully launched their massive Delta IV Heavy rocket for the final time from Vandenberg Space 4 Spaceflight on Saturday. Some minor technical issues delayed the liftoff briefly. Here is video from ULA of the magnificent launch.
Second stage LH2 secure at flight level.
30. Status check.
Go Delta.
Go NROL 91.
.5. Trophy ignition. 10.
Tester start.
T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. We have ignition. 2, 1,
Liftoff.
and liftoff of the last West Coast United Launch
Engine
Alliance
cooling water
Delta
on.
4 Heavy rocket carrying NROL 91 for the National Reconnaissance Office.
Vehicle has now begun the pitchover maneuver. All three RS-68 engines look good at this time. The core booster is now throttling down to the partial thrust level. And that core booster
We're
has now
hearing the
reached
voice
the
of
desired
Rob
partial
Kesselman
thrust
providing launch vehicle ascent data.
level. Parameters continue to look good. Vehicle is now 3 miles in altitude, 5 miles downrange distance, traveling at a velocity of 1,000 miles per hour. Engine parameters continue to look good at this time. Vehicle is now passing through max Q, maximum dynamic pressure. Mach 1, Delta 4 is now supersonic. Port, starboard, and center RS-68 engine parameters are within the expected operating parameters right now. The second stage reaction control system pressurization valve has opened. Delta 4 now 130 seconds into flight, flying at an altitude of 19 miles, downrange distance of 14 miles. Delta 4 has gone to closed loop guidance. Vehicle body rates are as expected. Three minutes remaining in the booster phase of flight. Delta 4 rocket weighs now just 1/2 of what it did at launch, burning propellant at a rate of almost 5,000 pounds per second. 1 minute until port and starboard booster engine cutoff. And all three RS-68 engines are showing good performance at this time. Vehicle body rates are near zero. 30 seconds remaining now until the port and starboard booster engines cut off. And 2 minutes remain in booster phase of flight, 2 minutes remaining until BECO. Strap-on boosters are now throttling down to the partial thrust level. Engine response looks good. We've had strap-on booster cutoff and strap-on separation. The center core RS-68A is now throttling back up to the high power level. The upper stage lock system has begun the boost phase chill down sequence to begin thermal conditioning of the RL-10 engine. 1 minute remaining in the booster phase of flight. And now the upper stage fuel system has begun the boost phase chill down sequence. Core engine chamber pressure continues to look good at this time. Core booster is now throttling down in preparation for BECO. And we have BECO, booster engine cutoff. And we have stage separation, successful separation of the first and second stages. We're seeing the nozzle deployment begin on the upper stage engine. And we have ignition on the DCSS.
The second launch of the day came from the Cape, where SpaceX lofted another batch of 52 Starlink satellites. Here is video of that liftoff.
15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition, and liftoff of Starlink 435. Go Falcon 9. Recovery. Stage 1, chamber pressures are nominal.
With that successful liftoff of our Starlink satellites on our Falcon 9 vehicle,
Power engine telemetry nominal.
From Space Launch Complex 40, lifting off at 7:32 p.m. Eastern Time.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
So with that call, we have Falcon 9 now traveling faster than the speed of sound. Seeing a great shot of the engines on the first stage. And that call out there indicating we are through the point of maximum aerodynamic pressure, the highest stresses that the vehicle will feel during ascent. Now coming up in about a minute, we'll have 3 events happening back to back. The first of those is main engine cutoff, where we'll shut down all 9 of the Merlin 1D engines on the first stage, followed by stage separation, and then second engine start on the second stage. And a great view of the first stage there. Now we're looking up at the second stage.
And MECO. Stage separation. Invac ignition.
Fantastic. So main engine cutoff, stage separation, and Merlin
Separation
vacuum
confirmed.
start. And there was fairing deploy as well. You can see those fairing halves on the left-hand side of your screen, as well as the grid fins on the first stage deploying. Now we will be attempting to recover both of those fairing halves. Both of them are for their 5th and 4th flights. We just had a glimpse there of the sun reflecting off those fairing halves. There you can see the fairing halves reflecting some sunlight as we're heading up to orbit. Left-hand dot is the engine on the Merlin vacuum. I believe the middle object is our first stage, and then the fairing halves around it. Seeing some periodic nitrogen gas bursts on our first stage as it's reorienting
On a nominal trajectory.
for its next major activity, which will be the entry burn. On the right-hand side of your screen, we've got our Merlin vacuum engine continuing to burn as it's taking our 52 Starlink satellites to orbit. Today's mission does mark SpaceX's 181st launch overall. The
Acquisition of signal, Bermuda.
first stage on the left-hand side of your screen has previously supported 3 missions, SES-22, and 2 previous Starlink missions, today marking its 4th. And you can see that its speed and altitude are fairly stable. It's arcing its way back to planet Earth to attempt a landing, and on the right-hand side of your screen, you can actually see the curvature of planet Earth behind our Merlin vacuum engine. Now, as a reminder, we are flying Starlink satellites today, and Starlink is a satellite internet constellation designed and manufactured by SpaceX to provide high-speed and low-latency internet to people living in remote and rural locations around the globe. We are currently live in 47 markets around the world. You can see the sunlight reflecting off our first stage on the left-hand side of your screen. Its next major activity coming up, that'll be the start of its entry burn to prepare it for atmospheric re-entry and slow down.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
So for this burn, we are igniting 3 of the Merlin engines, which helps slow down the first stage
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
as we start
Stage 1
hitting the top.
ISS saved.
As we start hitting the top of the Earth's atmosphere. Now from here on, we've got enough atmospheric force where those grid fins that we saw deploy earlier will help guide the first stage towards our
Vehicles on a
drone
nominal
ship.
trajectory. Stage 2 FTSS saved.
Second stage burn continues to look nominal. the second stage will continue to burn until the point right around the time where the first stage will be landing. That'll be about T plus 8 minutes and 30 or so seconds.
Stage 1 transonic.
With that, the first stage is transitioning through the speed of sound. And its next major activity will be the landing burn.
Stage 2 is the terminal guidance. Stage 1 landing burn.
Startup of just a single Merlin vacuum engine. We'll see landing leg deploy as well shortly. And also keep an ear out here for second stage engine
Stage
cutoff.
1 landing leg deploy. Pico. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
So with those two callouts and a great shot from the drone ship, we've got confirmation of our second stage in the nominal orbit. And our first stage, Falcon 9, has landed, marking the 143rd landing of an orbital class rocket. This marks our 43rd launch of 2022.